Somewhere in Denmark, a supercomputer just calculated the exact date a 34-year-old man will die. He doesn't know about it, his doctor doesn't know about it, but the algorithm does, with 78% accuracy. And the most disturbing part, it's not science fiction, it already happened. In 2023, a team of researchers at the Technical University of Denmark built an AI system called Life2Vec. They fed it the complete life records of over 6 million Danish citizens. Every hospital visit, every job change, every address, every diagnosis. Then they asked it one question: who dies next? The AI answered correctly, 78% of the time. This is not a prediction app. This is not a horoscope. This is a machine that learned the pattern of human death. And it's more accurate than any doctor alive. Tonight we go inside Life2Vec. What it knows, what it sees, and what it means for the future of humanity. To understand why this algorithm exists, we need to go back to 2018. Insurance companies had a problem. They were losing billions of dollars every year, not because of fraud, but because they couldn't predict who would die early and who wouldn't. A 45-year-old marathon runner could die from a sudden heart attack. A 70-year-old smoker could live to 95. Traditional medicine looks at risk factors, blood pressure, cholesterol, family history. But these models were only right about 60% of the time. Then a Danish professor named Sune Lehmann had an idea. What if death wasn't random at all? What if every human life followed a pattern, a hidden sequence of events that a machine could learn to read? He called his theory the life sequence, and he built an AI to test it. Life2Vec works like ChatGPT, but instead of learning from words and sentences, it learns from life events. Every person's life becomes a story. Born in Copenhagen, that's chapter 1. First hospital visit at age 7, chapter 2. Changed jobs at 32, chapter 3. Diagnosed with high blood pressure at 40, chapter 4. The AI reads millions of these life stories and starts to find patterns invisible to humans. For example, it discovered that people who change jobs frequently before age 35 have a 23% higher chance of early death. Not because job changing kills you, but because it's a signal of deeper instability, financial stress, poor mental health, lack of social support. The algorithm sees the invisible thread connecting these events. It found that men who stop visiting doctors for more than 3 years, even if they feel healthy, have dramatically higher mortality rates. It found that people who move to wealthier neighborhoods in their 30s live an average of 4.3 years longer, not because the neighborhood heals them, but because the move itself signals upward stability, better food, less stress, better healthcare. The algorithm doesn't predict death directly. It predicts the pattern of your life, and death is simply where the pattern ends. When the researchers tested Life2Vec, they gave it a challenge. Take 100,000 Danes. Half of them died between 2016 and 2020. Half of them survived. The AI had never seen these people before. It looked at their life records up to 2015 and predicted who would die and who would live. It was right 78% of the time. To put that in perspective, the best cardiologists in the world predict heart attack deaths with about 65% accuracy. The best oncologists predict cancer survival with about 70% accuracy. This algorithm, trained on data, not medical school, beat them both. But here's where it gets disturbing. The researchers were curious, so they asked the AI a different question, not just who dies, but who dies young. They focused on people between 35 and 65. The AI found a pattern no human researcher had ever noticed before. The single strongest predictor of early death wasn't smoking. It wasn't obesity. It wasn't even cancer history. It was mental health diagnoses combined with social isolation in your late 20s. People who experienced depression or anxiety between ages 25 and 32 and lived alone during that period were 3 times more likely to die before age 60. 3 times. The algorithm saw what doctors missed, that loneliness isn't just painful, it's lethal. Now here's where this stops being just a fascinating science experiment and becomes something that could personally affect your life. Think about this carefully. Right now, in 2026, your entire life is already digitized. Your hospital visits since birth, your prescription history, every job you've ever had, every address you've ever lived at. your credit score over the past decade, your social media activity, your location data from your phone. Every single one of these data points is already stored somewhere. In life too, VEC doesn't need anything new, it just needs access to what already exists. Here's the scenario that should keep you awake tonight. An insurance company in the United States pays a data broker for access to your digital life records. They run it silently through their own version of Life 2 VEC. The algorithm scores you, not on your current health, but on your predicted lifespan. And if your score is too low, your application gets quietly denied. No explanation, no appeal, no way to know why. You just get a letter that says, "We're unable to offer you coverage at this time." This isn't hypothetical. In 2024, ProPublica published an investigation revealing that several major US insurance companies were already using AI scoring systems to evaluate long-term risk. Systems that looked at factors far beyond traditional medical history. Life 2 VEC simply made those systems exponentially more accurate. The employment problem. But insurance is just the beginning. Consider what happens when employers get access to the same technology. You apply for a senior position at a Fortune 500 company. Before your first interview, before they've even read your resume, their HR system has already run a background analysis, not a criminal background check, not a credit check, a life trajectory analysis. The algorithm looks at your history and predicts two things. One, how long you're likely to stay at the company before leaving. Two, how long you're likely to live, because here's the cold financial reality that companies never say out loud. A 38-year-old employee predicted to die at 55 costs the company significantly more in healthcare, pension, and disability claims than a 38-year-old predicted to live to 82. So the algorithm quietly filters you out. You never get called back. You assume you weren't qualified enough. But the real reason was written in the invisible pattern of your life, a pattern you never even knew existed. Amazon, Google, and IBM have all filed patents in the last 3 years for AI systems that incorporate health and longevity prediction into workforce planning tools. They called it workforce sustainability modeling. The rest of us might call it something else. The government question. And then there's the most uncomfortable question of all. What happens when governments get access to Life 2 VEC? On the surface, it sounds beneficial. A government could identify high-risk populations early, people predicted to develop expensive chronic conditions, and intervene before the disease progresses. Earlier treatment, less suffering, lower healthcare costs. That's the optimistic version, but history has shown us what governments actually do with predictive population data. In 2021, China's social credit system began incorporating health prediction scores into citizen ratings, affecting access to travel, loans, and even education, not based on what you had done, but on what the algorithm predicted you might become. Think about that. Punished not for your actions, but for your predicted future. The Danish researchers who built Life 2 VEC specifically refused to release the full model publicly for exactly this reason. Professor Lehman wrote, "The technology is ready, the ethics are not. But here's the terrifying reality of the modern world. Technology doesn't wait for ethics to catch up. It never has. And somewhere right now, in a server farm in Virginia, or a research lab in Beijing, or a startup office in San Francisco, someone is building the commercial version of Life 2 VEC, and they're not waiting for a permission. They care to the final revelation. But I want to leave you with something that the mainstream coverage of Life 2 VEC completely missed. Something buried in page 34 of the original research paper. When the researchers analyzed what factors most strongly predicted a long, healthy life, it wasn't exercise, it wasn't diet, it wasn't genetics. The single strongest predictor of longevity across 6 million people, across every age group, across every income level, was the size and quality of your social network before age 40. Not your wealth, not your intelligence, not your physical fitness. The people who lived longest were simply the most connected, the ones who had strong friendships, the ones who stayed in communities, the ones who maintained relationships even when life got hard. The algorithm, this cold calculating machine, built on pure mathematics and data, discovered what philosophers have said for 3,000 years, that the deepest predictor of a long life is not what you eat, or how far you run, or how much money you make. It is simply whether you have people who love you, and whether you let them. The machine spent years analyzing 6 million lives, and concluded that the most powerful force in human survival is human connection. In a world where AI is learning to predict our deaths, maybe the most radical thing we can do is refuse to die alone. If this video made you think differently about science, data, and your own life, subscribe to GRAVEN. Every week we go deeper into the discoveries that mainstream science and psychology doesn't want to talk about. And if you want to go further, our next video covers something you probably never thought about, so be sure to subscribe for the next one. And nobody's doing anything about it. Click here to watch. I'll see you in the dark,